You check your bank app before you get out of bed, not to see if something changed. You know nothing changed. You check it because the number tells you what kind of day it's going to be before the day has a chance to surprise you. $31.47. Rent is $1,150. Due in 8 days. You already ran the numbers. You ran them last night, and again at 2 a.m., the math doesn't work. It hasn't worked in 4 months. You've stopped treating that as a crisis. You've started treating it as weather, something you manage around. You eat eggs in the morning because eggs are $2.89 a dozen, and that's breakfast for almost 2 weeks. You know exactly what's in the fridge and exactly how many days it lasts. You know the unit price on everything at the grocery store without looking at the label. You became good at this without trying to become good at it. You don't go to your friend's birthday dinner. You say you have work. You don't have work. You have $31.47. And the restaurant they picked has nothing under $18. And the math of that evening, the food, the Uber there and back, the round of drinks someone will insist on, is not math you can make work this week. You don't say that. You say you have work. You've been saying you have work for about 6 months now. A few months later, you have a steady number coming in, $1,500 a month after taxes. You got the job through Indeed. It is not what you pictured when you pictured your life at 25, but the number is predictable, and predictable is a thing you didn't have before, and that matters more than you expected. A system builds itself around the number without you consciously building it. Rent comes out on the 1st, the car insurance hits on the 7th, the phone bill on the 14th. By the 22nd, you're usually running under $60. You know which days to buy groceries. You know which weeks to avoid the gas station unless you absolutely need it. You have DoorDash, but you use it maybe once a month, and when you do, you feel it the next day in the budget, and you remind yourself you can't do that again for a while. You know you'll do it again in 3 weeks when you're tired enough to stop caring. You're driving for Uber on Friday nights. Not because you want to, because the month doesn't work without it. You don't tell people at your job that you do this. You've decided this is temporary. You've been deciding it's temporary since you started. $3,000 a month changes the texture of the day. You stop doing the constant mental arithmetic. Not completely, but enough. You stop doing the thing at the grocery store where you add everything up in your head before you get to the register. You stop checking your balance 3 times a day. Twice is enough, sometimes once. You open a savings account, you move $200 into it the first month. You watch it sit there. It becomes $400, then $600. You look at it sometimes for no reason. You look at it the way people look at a plant they thought was going to die but didn't. You have $6,200 in credit card debt. You have a student loan at $387 a month. You have a savings account with $600 in it, and you feel simultaneously like you are getting somewhere and like you are standing at the base of something very large. Both are accurate. They are both accurate at the same time. Here's the thing nobody tells you about this level. The anxiety doesn't go away. It changes shape. It used to be about this month. Now it's about whether you're actually getting ahead or just running in place with better shoes. $5,000 a month. The first thing you notice is the parking. You stop circling. You used to spend 20 minutes finding street parking. You just pull into the garage now. It's $18. You don't calculate whether $18 is worth it. You just pay it. The first time you do this and don't calculate it, you notice it feels like something closed behind you. A small door. You're not sure whether you should be glad or unsettled. You walk to the restaurant and you don't think about it again. You get the apartment by yourself. No roommates. You have a lease with your name. And you stand in the empty living room your first night in it and feel something that's hard to name. Pride, probably. Some version of it. You max out the 401k match at work. You sat in the HR orientation and heard someone say free money and thought, yeah, I can do that now. You moved the number to whatever gets you to the match. You didn't touch it again. You told yourself you'd learn more about investing later. You haven't learned more about investing yet. You keep meaning to. You are not saving fast enough. You feel this without being able to prove it. The month ends and the number in your account is close to where it started. Comfortable has turned out not to be the same thing as building. This is a specific and unwelcome realization. $8,000 a month. You open a brokerage account on a Tuesday night after watching a YouTube video about index funds. You put $1,000 in, you watch it for 2 weeks like it's going to do something. It goes up $40, it goes down $70. You remind yourself this is long term, you leave it alone, you put in $500 more the next month. You feel like you're doing something right for the first time in a while. You've started a Roth IRA, you maxed the 401k match, then you read about Roth IRAs, and now you're doing that too. Your HR contact looked at you a little differently when you came back with the updated paperwork. You didn't know why until later. Most people don't come back. The anxiety moved again. It used to be about having enough. Now it's about whether you're doing it correctly, whether the index funds are the right index funds, whether your allocation is wrong for your age. You've started listening to personal finance podcasts during your commute. You feel educated and anxious simultaneously, which is maybe just what being educated about money feels like. What you bought this year that you didn't buy before, a Costco membership, a gym membership you actually use, organic produce sometimes when it's not priced too far above the regular, a mattress that cost $900 and that you justified for 3 weeks before finally ordering it. It still surprises you occasionally, not having to think about the $900 the way you used to think about $90. $15,000 a month. You flew direct last month without checking whether there was a cheaper option with a connection. You just booked the direct flight. You landed an hour and 20 minutes earlier. You don't know exactly when this became normal. You know it wasn't always normal. You're picking up the check more. Not every time, but enough that people expect it when they don't say they expect it. You feel it in how they look at the table when the bill arrives. You tell yourself it's generosity. Part of it is. The other part is that splitting the check has started to feel complicated in a way that's harder to explain than just paying it. You have a financial advisor now. You felt slightly embarrassed calling her the first time, like admitting you needed help was admitting something else. She looked at your accounts and said calmly that you were behind on a few things. Not in a bad way, in a fixable way. You left that first meeting feeling both relieved and unsettled, which is maybe the correct response to that information. Something is happening with your friendships that you keep deciding not to examine. The people you came up with, they're still there and you still love them, but the conversations have started to have a gap in them. They talk about things you no longer have to manage. You listen. You used to be inside those conversations. You can remember being inside them. You nod at the right times and keep the gap to yourself. $30,000 a month. You wired money to your parents last month, not because they asked, because you could and you knew they wouldn't ask, and you know what their situation actually looks like from the inside because you lived inside a version of it. You didn't discuss the amount. You texted your mom that you were sending something, and she texted back okay, and that was the conversation. The amount was $8,000. No one mentioned it again. You have someone who comes twice a week and handles the apartment. You have an accountant. You have a person who handles the scheduling. You have reclaimed hours that used to disappear into logistics. And you have redirected those hours almost entirely into making more money, which buys more hours, which you redirect into making more money. You have noticed this loop. You have not decided to exit it. Your college friend Mike makes $72,000 a year. He's a project manager. He's good at it. You had dinner last month and he talked about finally saving enough for a down payment, and you listened carefully and asked the right questions, and you were genuinely happy for him. You also felt, underneath that, a quiet distance that you didn't choose and couldn't fully close. You don't know what to do with that. You filed it and moved on. $100,000 a month. The day is arranged before you arrive at it. Decisions about your time were made by someone else. You make the larger decisions. The calendar makes the smaller ones. The money stopped being interesting around here. This is not something you say to people because it sounds like something you say to make people feel bad, but it is the accurate version. Income became infrastructure. The number in the account is like the water pressure in the building. You'd notice if it changed, but you don't think about it while you're in the shower. You think about leverage now. Not the word, the thing. What moves what, whose call gets returned, and why. You've been on both sides of that enough times to understand the architecture. The people in the room are never the most powerful people connected to the room. You've learned where to look. The trade-off at this level is hard to name and harder to feel, which is maybe the point. Something that used to be available in you, a certain kind of presence in your own life, has become less accessible, not gone, less available. You're optimizing most of the time. The optimization doesn't clock out. Above $500,000 a month, the money is in structures, a trust, an LLC inside a holding company, accounts in your name that a team of 4 monitors. You have not logged into a bank app in 2 years. You make decisions, the infrastructure executes them. You do not attend panels. You do not give interviews. You sit on 2 boards. You play golf with 2 people who make phone calls that move regulatory timelines. You do not discuss this. These are the relationships that matter most and that look from the outside most like friendships. Your name appeared in a profile in a business publication once. You had it handled. Privacy is not something you lost at this level. It is something you purchased. Your family, you love them. You see them when there isn't something requiring your attention. There is often something requiring your attention. You are working on this. You have been working on this for 4 years. You do not know what you would do if you stopped. You've sat with that question quietly. Nothing comes back. So you don't stop. The system needs someone to run it, and you stopped being able to locate the version of yourself that exists outside of running it. Somewhere tonight, in an apartment with one window that faces a brick wall, someone is lying in the dark. Their bank app says $31.47. Rent is due in 8 days. They're doing the math, mapping the paths, running the scenarios the way you ran them in that apartment, in that dark, with that number. They think the problem is the number. They think when the number changes, the weight lifts, that somewhere ahead of where they are, there's a version of this where they stop running. You used to think that. You found out what changes when the number changes. The math doesn't stop. It doesn't disappear. It just finds bigger things to count. And the weight you were carrying, you traded it in. You got a different weight.